We're on an adventure. Yeah! Seeing what else life has to offer. We're trying to get to Jamaica.
You do not run from it.
Artist Nanjiani Tresi when a family of ducks decides to leave their quiet pond for the adventure of a lifetime. The skies become their greatest challenge, filled with laughter, heart, and a lesson about courage. This is Cinema Reviews, and today we take flight with Migration. The Book of Eli is a 2010 American post-apocalyptic neo-western action film directed by the Hughes brothers, written by Gary Whitta, and starring Denzel Washington, Gary Oldman, Mila Kunis, Ray Stevenson, and Jennifer Beals. The story follows Eli Washington, a nomad in a post-apocalyptic world who seeks to deliver his copy of a mysterious book to a safe location on the west coast of the United States. Filming began in February 2009 and took place in New Mexico. The Book of Eli was released theatrically in the United States on January 15, 2010. By Warner Brothers Pictures. It received mixed reviews from critics but earned $157.1 million at the worldwide box office on a budget of $80 million. In New England, anxious Mac Mallard discourages his children Dax and Gwen from venturing beyond their pond, much to the displeasure of his wife, Pam. One day, a flock of ducks migrating to Jamaica visits the pond, fascinating the family except for Mac, who shows no interest. Pam urges him to open his eyes to the world. That night, Mac talks with his Uncle Dan, who also refuses to leave the pond, but after seeing his uncle's loneliness, Mac reconsiders and decides to let his family migrate, with Uncle Dan joining them at Gwen's request. During a rainstorm, the family takes shelter in a swamp beneath the boardwalk, where they meet an elderly heron named Darren and her husband Harry, who invite them to spend the night. Though the herons appear intimidating, Aaron proves their good intentions by saving Dax and Gwen from a catfish. The next day, the Mallards arrive in New York City, where Uncle Dan gets them into trouble with a flock of pigeons led by the feisty Chump. Pam diffuses the conflict, and Chump introduces them to her friend Delroy, a scarlet macaw from Jamaica who has been trapped in a cage by a human chef who kidnapped him. Mac and Pam sneak into the restaurant where the chef works, retrieve the key, and free Delroy, who agrees to guide them to Jamaica in return. When Gwen stops for a bathroom break, Mac discovers a resort populated by pickens. The family enjoys themselves there until Dax learns it's actually a duck farm, with the chef from earlier as one of its clients. Mac tells Dax to return to Pam, but instead, Dax warns the pickens. In the chaos, the chef steps on Dax, tearing out his wing feathers and leaving him unable to fly. The family, Delroy, and the pickens manage to escape. They rest at a motel, where Mac scolds Dax for his recklessness. Later that evening, the chef tracks them down by helicopter and captures the birds in a net, except for Dax and Gwen, who hide. Inside the helicopter, the chef prepares to kill Mac and Pam as revenge. Using a salsa dance they learned at the restaurant, Mac and Pam shift their cage to reach a release button, but the chef catches them. Delroy, Uncle Dan, and the pickens throw food at the chef until he is knocked out, hitting the button that opens a trapdoor. The chef falls with Mac and Pam, but he becomes tangled in the cargo net while the couple continues to plummet. Dax and Gwen save them, with Dax using feathers from other birds to repair his wings. Mac and Dax reconcile. Now led by Dax, the birds finally reach Jamaica, where Delroy reunites with his family and friends, and the mallards reunite with the duck family that once visited their pond. The following spring, the mallards meet a group of penguins and help guide them to the South Pole. Migration, 2023, a comprehensive look at the stellar voice cast and production. Introduction. Illumination Entertainment's Migration arrived on the animated film scene on December 22, 2023, as a refreshing original creation in an industry increasingly saturated with sequels and franchise extensions. Directed by Benjamin Renner and co-directed by Kumail Nanjiani, with a screenplay written by the Emmy-winning Mike White, the film represents Illumination's first original theatrical feature film in 8 years. What distinguished this animated adventure comedy from its predecessors was not just its original premise following a family of mallards on an unexpected vacation to Jamaica, but also its exceptional ensemble voice cast. The casting choices made for Migration demonstrated a thoughtful approach to bringing animated characters to life, blending established Hollywood names with emerging talents and comedic voices. This comprehensive exploration of the film's voice cast reveals the deliberate creative decisions behind each casting selection and how these performers contributed to the film's critical acclaim and box office success. The announcement and casting strategy. On April 26, 2023, at the industry trade show CinemaCon in Las Vegas, Illumination unveiled the complete voice cast for Migration. The announcement marked a significant moment for the project, as it confirmed the ambitious scope of the film's voice acting ensemble. Illumination founder Chris Meledandri introduced the cast to attendees, explaining the creative vision behind the project. Meledandri remarked, "I find ducks so irresistible. In our movie, ducks worked beautifully to convey the relatable quirks and truths of a modern-day family." This statement encapsulated the film's central concept, using anthropomorphic waterfowl as vehicles for exploring universal family dynamics and the tension between safety and adventure. The casting strategy revealed a multifaceted approach. Rather than relying solely on A-list celebrities, the filmmakers sought voices that could authentically represent the characters' personalities and perspectives. Director Benjamin Renner was instrumental in this process, personally connecting with cast members to ensure they understood their characters' motivations and quirks. This collaborative approach between director and actor distinguished Migration from typical animated film productions, where voice actors often record their lines with minimal directorial input or thematic guidance. The lead cast, establishing the Mallard family. Kumail Nanjiani as Mac Mallard. Kumail Nanjiani was cast in the role of Mac Mallard, the anxious patriarch of the duck family at the story's center. Nanjiani's selection for this role demonstrated a careful alignment between the actor's real-life personality traits and those of his animated character. Director Benjamin Renner noted that Nanjiani's love for routine and his comedic background, particularly his stand-up sketches in which he humorously complains about everyday inconveniences, made him the perfect fit for Mac. a character defined by his reluctance to venture beyond the safety of his familiar pond. Nanjiani, known for his roles in films like The Big Sick, his performance in the HBO series Silicon Valley, and his recent addition to the Marvel Cinematic Universe as part of the Eternals ensemble, brought considerable star power to the project. Beyond his acting credentials, Nanjiani's background as a successful stand-up comedian informed his vocal performance, allowing him to deliver Mac's comedic complaints with authentic timing and emotional nuance. The actor's recent career trajectory, which included Emmy nominations for his performances in the Twilight Zone reboot and the Hulu limited series Welcome to Chippendale, positioned him as an in-demand performer capable of delivering both comedic and dramatic moments. Mac's character arc, which forms the emotional backbone of Migration, required an actor capable of portraying both stubborn resistance and emotional vulnerability. Nanjiani's performance navigated this character development smoothly, beginning with Mac's protective paranoia and gradually revealing the deeper insecurities driving his behavior. The character's eventual acceptance of adventure and trust in his family's capabilities provided Nanjiani with rich emotional material to explore throughout the film. Elizabeth Banks as Pam Mallard. Elizabeth Banks was cast as Pam Mallard, Mac's thrill-seeking and adventurous wife who serves as the driving force behind the family's decision to migrate. Director Renner identified Banks as the ideal choice because of her real-life openness to new experiences and her willingness to embrace novel opportunities, qualities that directly resonated with Pam's character. Banks' casting added significant star power to the project, given her prominence in major film franchises in her successful production career. Banks' filmography includes prominent roles in the Hunger Games series, where she played President Coriolanus Snow's associate, and her work on the Pitch Perfect franchise, which she also produced. Beyond these high-profile roles, Banks demonstrated voice acting capabilities through her previous animated work, including the character of Wildstyle in the Lego Movie and its 2019 sequel. Her 2023 directorial effort, Cocaine Bear, showcased her versatility as a creative professional. In Migration, Banks brought a warm, persuasive quality to Pam's voice, capturing the character's blend of optimism, determination, and maternal concern. Pam's role required an actress capable of portraying both comedic lightness and genuine emotion. Banks delivered moments of comedic timing while also grounding the film's emotional core through Pam's unwavering belief in her family's ability to adapt and grow. Her vocal performance conveyed Pam's love for adventure without portraying her as reckless, maintaining the film's family-friendly tone while celebrating the benefits of stepping outside one's comfort zone. Casper Jennings as Dax Mallard. Casper Jennings voiced Dax Mallard, the Mallard's confident and impulsive son. This casting choice demonstrated Illumination's commitment to providing voice acting opportunities to emerging talent. While Jennings had limited prior experience in the industry, his previous work with Illumination gave him credibility within the studio system. Jennings previously lent his voice to the character of Piglet in both Sing and Sing 2, establishing a working relationship with the studio and demonstrating his capabilities as a voice performer. Dax's character requires a voice capable of conveying youthful recklessness balanced with genuine affection for his family. Jennings brought an energy and playfulness to the character that resonated with younger audience members while remaining engaging for adults. The teenage Dax Sarka, from viewing the adventure as an opportunity for excitement to recognizing his role within the family unit, to provide Jennings with opportunities to explore emotional depth alongside comedic moments. Tresi Gazal as Gwen Mallard. Tresi Gazal's casting as Gwen Mallard marked a particularly noteworthy decision in the film's production. This role represented Gazal's film debut, making her casting a particularly bold choice for a major Illumination production. Gazal is the daughter of Christian Gazal, the film's editor, which added an interesting family dimension to the production. Interestingly, Gazal was initially brought on to provide scratch vocals for the character. Temporary voice recordings used as placeholders during early production stages, but her performance proved so effective that the filmmakers decided to retain her voice for the finished film. Gwen, the Mallards' young and innocent daughter, required a voice capable of conveying both naivete tilde copyright and a growing awareness of the world's complexities. Gazal's vocal performance captured these qualities with remarkable skill for a first-time film performer. Her inexperience paradoxically became an asset, lending authenticity to Gwen's character. After Migration, Gazal continued her acting career, receiving credit in the 2024 film Billy Knight, suggesting that her successful film debut opened doors for future opportunities in the industry. The supporting cast, enriching the world of Migration. Danny DeVito as Uncle Dan. Danny DeVito provided the voice for Uncle Dan, Mac's elderly and initially reluctant uncle who inadvertently becomes a catalyst for the family's adventure. DeVito's casting brought considerable experience and comedic timing to this supporting but crucial role. DeVito's long career in both theater and film, beginning with his work in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest and Dreams of Glass, established him as a seasoned professional. His prominence in the television series Taxi, for which he won an Emmy Award for Outstanding Supporting Actor in a Comedy Series in 1981, demonstrated his ability to deliver both comedic and emotionally resonant performances. DeVito's career has included numerous animated voice roles, most notably as the Lorax in the 2012 Illumination film adaptation of Dr. Seuss' The Lorax. This prior experience with Illumination made him a natural choice for Migration. DeVito brought warmth and gravitas to Uncle Dan, a character whose initial pessimism and loneliness proved transformative when the Mallard family extends the invitation for him to join their adventure. His performance underscored one of the film's central themes, the transformative power of connection and family. Carol Kane as Erin the Heron. Carol Kane lent her distinctive voice to Erin, an elderly heron encountered by the Mallard family during their journey. Kane's voice acting career has been substantial, though primarily in television work on shows like Taxi, where she reunited with DeVito, and various other series. Her distinctive vocal quality proved ideal for the character of Erin, who speaks with particular cadence and charm. The actress' broad range of comedic and dramatic roles in her live-action career translated effectively to voice acting, bringing authentic warmth and personality to the character. Erin's role, while not as prominent as the core Mallard family members, served important narrative and thematic functions. The elderly heron and her husband provide both comic relief and emotional grounding for the story, offering the Mallard family refuge during challenging moments in their journey. Kane's vocal performance conveyed both the character's age and wisdom, contributing to the film's cross-generational appeal. Awkwafina as Chomp. Awkwafina, the stage name of rapper, comedian, and actress Nora Lum, voiced Chomp, the charismatic leader of a New York City pigeon gang. This casting choice exemplified the filmmaker's interest in bringing distinctive vocal talent to the production. Chomp, described as someone who knows the city like the back of her one foot, required a voice that could convey street-smart confidence mixed with surprising warmth and reliability. Awkwafina's comedic background and distinctive vocal quality made her an ideal match for this character. Interestingly, Chomp represented the second bird character Awkwafina voiced in 2023. Earlier that year, she played Scuttle in Disney's live-action remake of The Little Mermaid, demonstrating her versatility as a voice performer across different studios and production types. Beyond her 2023 work, Awkwafina had previously voiced animated characters, including a quail and storks and a tarantula in the 2022 film The Bad Guys. Her music and comedy career, highlighted by her starring role and creative work on the Comedy Central series Awkwafina is Nora from Queens, which she also co-created, established her as a multi-talented entertainer capable of bringing humor and authenticity to voice performances. Awkwafina's portrayal of Chomp added significant comedic value to Migration. The pigeon gang leader's initial contentious relationship with the Mallards eventually blossoms into genuine friendship, and Awkwafina navigated this character arc with skill, ensuring that Chomp remained likable despite her tough exterior. The actress' comedic timing enhanced the film's humor while her emotional delivery conveyed the character's underlying loyalty and capacity for friendship. Keegan-Michael Key as Delroy. Keegan-Michael Key, known for his work in the sketch comedy series Key and Peele alongside Jordan Peele, voiced Delroy, a Jamaican parrot trapped in captivity at a Manhattan restaurant. Key's background in sketch comedy and his experience with various comedic voices made him well-suited for bringing Delroy to life. The character's struggle against captivity and his desire to return home required an actor capable of portraying both comedic desperation and genuine emotion. Key's animation experience extends beyond migration. In 2023 alone, he voiced Toad in the Super Mario Bros. Movie, demonstrating his active involvement in major animated productions. His earlier film Wonka, 2023, showcased his ability to work in family-friendly projects. Additionally, Key's work with Peel included voice acting for Toy Story 4, where he voiced the character Ducky, providing him with considerable experience in the animated film medium before migration. Key's live-action filmography includes notable performances in The Predator, 2018, and the action comedy Keanu, highlighting his versatility across comedic and dramatic genre. In Migration, Key brought characteristic energy and comedic flair to Delroy, a character who could have been one-dimensional but became a memorable part of the film's ensemble through Key's vocal performance. David Mitchell as Gugu. David Mitchell, the British comedian known for the Channel 4 sitcom Peep Show and the sketch comedy series That Mitchell and Webb Look, voiced Gugu, an American pecan duck who lives on a luxurious farm and teaches yoga. This casting brought an additional layer of comedic sophistication to the film's ensemble. Mitchell's British comedic sensibility and his experience with satirical humor enriched Gugu's character, a wealthy, wellness-focused duck whose lifestyle contrasts sharply with the mallard's humble origins. While Mitchell's voice acting experience in feature films was limited compared to some cast members, his extensive television work, including voice acting on shows like Rick and Morty, demonstrated his capabilities in the medium. His selection as Gugu provided the character with a distinct vocal personality that made him memorable despite his supporting role. The character's obsession with yoga and wellness humor allowed Mitchell's comedic instincts to shine through in the film's script. Isabella Merced as Kim. Isabella Merced voiced Kim, a duck who befriends Dax and serves as a catalyst for the mallard's journey. Merced's prominent roles in films like Transformers, The Last Knight and Dora and The Lost City of Gold establish her as a rising star capable of carrying significant screen time. More recently, her performance in Alien, Romulus, 2024, demonstrated her ability to work across multiple genres and production scales. Kim's character serves an important narrative function, inspiring the Mallard family's decision to migrate by sharing stories of her family's travels. Merced's vocal performance conveyed both the character's adventurous spirit and her genuine connection with Thax, providing emotional resonance to their developing relationship throughout the film's narrative. The creative direction and casting philosophy. Director Benjamin Renner's approach to casting for Migration demonstrated a sophisticated understanding of how voice actors' real-life personalities could inform and enhance their animated characters. Rather than viewing voice casting as a secondary consideration, Renner engaged actively with the casting process, ensuring that each performer understood their character's core motivations and emotional landscape. Renner, a French animator and comic book creator, brought a distinctive artistic vision to the project. His prior work directing traditionally animated films, including Ernest Celestine, 2012, and The Big Bad Fox and Other Tales, 2017, had earned critical acclaim and various festival selections. His transition to computer animation for Migration required significant adaptation on his part, but his approach to character-driven storytelling remained consistent. The casting choices reflected this character-centric philosophy, with each actor selected for their ability to bring depth and authenticity to their roles. Co-director Kumail Nanjiani, a layout artist who had previously directed the short film Eddie's Life Coach, 2017, contributed additional creative perspective to the project. The collaboration between Renner and Nanjiani, along with screenwriter Mike White, created a production environment where character development and emotional authenticity were prioritized alongside comedic entertainment. The screenwriter's influence. Mike White, the Emmy-winning creator of the HBO series The White Lotus, brought his considerable writing talents to Migration. White's background encompassing comedic and dramatic writing, including his work as screenwriter for School of Rock and his reality television experience as a contestant on Survivor, informed his approach to the screenplay. White's writing provided rich material for the voice cast to work with, allowing actors to find character depth within the comedy-adventure framework. White's screenplay balanced family comedy with genuine emotional stakes, providing voice actors with opportunities to deliver both comedic moments and sincere emotional performances. The script's exploration of parental anxiety, family loyalty, and personal growth gave the ensemble cast material worthy of their talents. Production and animation considerations. The film's animation was handled by Illumination Studios Paris, a decision that reflected the studio's commitment to distributing its production facilities while bringing distinctive artistic perspectives to different projects. This French-based animation team worked closely with the voice cast, sometimes recording actors simultaneously to capture natural conversational rhythms between characters. Renner explained his adaptation of his minimalist drawing style for computer animation. Renner was tasked with adapting his minimalist drawing style from previous films for a computer-animated film, which requires more extensive detail. He had previously designed the visuals for the 2014 Franco-Belgian computer-animated film about migrating birds titled Yellowbird, which was noted for not strictly adhering to photorealism. This technical evolution in Renner's artistic approach paralleled the challenges of adapting his character-driven storytelling approach to the voice acting medium. For Migration, Renner drew inspiration from naturally impressive animals in the wild, creating characters with distinctly expressive features. This commitment to visual expressiveness complemented the voice performances, as the animators could respond to and enhance the vocal choices made by the ensemble cast. Critical reception and voice performance recognition. The critical reception of Migration acknowledged the quality of the voice performances across the board. Critics recognized the film as a refreshing departure from Illumination's recent output, noting its emphasis on character, humor, and emotional authenticity. Michael Ordo, A++A of the Los Angeles Times, while critiquing the plot's predictability, praised the film for differing from Illumination's previous filmography, particularly in the animation, humor, and voice performances. Lavia Archite of The Hollywood Reporter specifically praised the film's voice cast and their contributions to the film's success. The recognition extended to supporting performances, with particular notice paid to emerging talent like Tresi Gazal and established comedians like Awkwafina and Keegan-Michael Key. Box office performance and audience reception. Released on December 22, 2023, Migration achieved significant commercial success despite not being a sequel or franchise installment. The film grossed $300.2 million worldwide, demonstrating that audiences responded positively to the original story and its well-executed cast. This financial success validated Illumination's investment in original storytelling and the quality voice cast assembled for the project. The film opened alongside other major theatrical releases including Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, Anyone But You, and The Iron Claw. Despite this crowded marketplace, Migration found its audience, with particular strength among family audiences seeking quality entertainment suitable for viewers of all ages. Individual career impacts. For several cast members, Migration provided significant platform exposure to younger audiences unfamiliar with their prior work. Casper Jennings and Tresi Gazal benefited particularly from their association with the successful major studio animated film, potentially opening doors for future voice acting and acting opportunities. For established performers like Kumail Nanjiani, Elizabeth Banks, and Danny DeVito, the film represented another notable entry in their filmographies, particularly one demonstrating their versatility across different media and character types. Awkwafina's dual voice acting roles in 2023 as both Scuttle and Disney's The Little Mermaid and Chump in Migration have positioned her as an increasingly visible performer capable of voicing significant characters in major studio productions. This visibility potentially contributed to her continued casting in high-profile projects. Conclusion: the ensemble as character. The voice cast of Migration, 2023, represents far more than a collection of celebrity names assembled for marketing purposes. Rather, the casting choices reflect a deliberate and thoughtful approach to animated film production where character authenticity, emotional resonance, and comedic timing are prioritized. Director Benjamin Renner's engagement with the casting process ensured that each performer brought not just technical skill but personal insight to their roles, resulting in characters that felt genuine and emotionally grounded despite their animated duck appearances. From Kumail Nanjiani's anxious patriarch to Elizabeth Banks' adventurous matriarch, from Danny DeVito's wistful uncle to Awkwafina's street-smart pigeon, each voice performer contributed essential elements to the film's success. The ensemble cast transformed what could have been a simple children's adventure story into a thoughtful exploration of family dynamics, personal growth, and the courage required to embrace change. Migration stands as a testament to the importance of casting excellence in animated filmmaking. While visual animation and screenwriting provide essential foundations for animated films, the voice performances breathe life into characters and create the emotional connections that resonate with audiences across age groups and demographics. The careful assembly of this talented ensemble cast, led by director Benjamin Renner's creative vision, resulted in an animated film that achieved both critical acclaim and commercial success while delivering an entertaining and emotionally meaningful family entertainment experience. Migration, 2023, a comprehensive look at Illumination's animated journey. Introduction. Migration stands as a distinctive entry in the Illumination entertainment catalog, representing a deliberate shift toward autism and original storytelling. Released theatrically on December 22, 2023, this animated adventure comedy brought together an accomplished international filmmaking team to create a film that diverges noticeably from the studio's established formula. Directed by French animator Benjamin Renner and written by Mike White, Migration tells the heartwarming story of a family of mallards embarking on their first migration journey from New England through New York City to Jamaica. The film grossed $300.2 million worldwide, demonstrating substantial audience appeal despite facing a challenging competitive landscape. During its theatrical run, the film represents more than just another animated family featurette. It embodies a philosophy that prioritizes director vision and creative independence within a major studio system. Illumination's leadership made a deliberate choice to hand the reins to Renner, an acclaimed animator known for his distinctive minimalist style and European sensibilities. This decision marked a significant moment for the studio, as it signaled a willingness to experiment with new visual approaches and storytelling methodologies that distinguished Migration from its contemporaries. Production development and pre-production. The genesis of Migration began in February 2022 when Illumination officially announced the project, immediately establishing an interesting pedigree. The studio selected Benjamin Renner to direct, a choice that signified a departure from their typical approach. Renner's background in traditional animation, particularly his acclaimed films Ernest Celestine, 2012, and The Big Bad Fox and Other Tales, 2017, made him somewhat of an unexpected choice for a computer-animated film. However, this unconventional selection reflected a conscious strategy by Illumination head Chris Meledandri to bring what he termed filmmaker attention to the project. Meledandri's vision for Migration centered on prioritizing the director's artistic sensibility over the studio's established commercial formula. Speaking at the Annecy International Animation Film Festival, Meledandri emphasized that Migration represented Illumination's first original project since 2016, and the studio wanted to ensure it received the focused attention of a visionary filmmaker rather than being treated as another installment in an established franchise. This represented a refreshing acknowledgement that original animated projects require different creative approaches than licensed properties. Mike White, known for his work on The White Lotus and other projects, came aboard as the screenwriter. White's approach to the material emphasized what he called a comedic fantasy landscape that could explore deeper thematic material while maintaining the zaniness necessary to appeal to younger audiences. White described the film as having more depth than standard children's fare or typical Illumination output, suggesting ambitions that extended beyond simple entertainment toward meaningful storytelling. The budget for Migration was established at a minimum of $72 million, placing it firmly in the expensive category for animated filmmaking. Though not necessarily unprecedented for a studio-backed feature, this substantial investment reflected the studio's commitment to the project and the scope of what Renner envisioned. By April 2023, additional crew members were revealed, including co-director Galo Homsi, editor Christian Gazal, and production designer Colin Stimpson, each bringing specialized expertise to different aspects of the production. The thematic development of Migration drew inspiration from Renner's personal experiences. The director famously described the film as Little Miss Sunshine with ducks, a comparison that immediately conveyed the tone he sought to achieve via a balance between heartfelt family dynamics and comedic situations. The film's tone evolved as the story progressed, beginning with lighter comedic elements before introducing more tension and genuine stakes as the narrative advanced. This tonal trajectory reflected Renner's desire to create something that resonated emotionally while maintaining entertainment value throughout. Renner's approach to humor established several deliberate creative boundaries. He made a conscious effort to avoid what he termed lazy jokes, which he felt were too common in contemporary family films. This commitment manifested in specific choices, such as his general rule against including fart jokes or other low-effort comedy. Instead, Renner pursued humor that could function on multiple levels, appealing simultaneously to children and adults. Any slapstick elements received careful thought and additional dimensionality beyond surface-level physical comedy. This philosophy represented a maturation in how family entertainment could balance accessibility with sophistication. The character development process revealed Renner's meticulous approach. The youngest character, Gwen, drew inspiration from Renner's own experiences as the youngest sibling in his family, allowing him to channel authentic emotional understanding into her characterization. The film's central theme, as described by Renner, focused on getting out of your comfort zone, facing life, and accepting that fear is part of life. This thematic foundation would inform every creative decision from voice casting to visual storytelling. Voice cast and acting. The voice cast assembly revealed thoughtful character casting choices that extended beyond simple star power. In April 2023, Illumination announced the principal voice actors, creating a roster that blended established stars with newer talent. Kumail Nanjiani was selected to voice Mac Mallard, the anxious protagonist father, a choice that drew from Renner's observation that Nanjiani's comedy sketches often involve humorous complaining about routines and mundane matters, perfect for expressing Mac's anxiety-ridden personality. Elizabeth Banks was cast as Pam Mallard, Mac's daring and quick-witted wife. Banks's real-life openness to new experiences and willingness to embrace novel situations made her ideally suited to voice a character who actively encourages her family to break free from routine and embrace adventure. The contrast between Nanjiani and Banks's characters reflected genuine personality traits that the actors brought to their performances, enhancing the authenticity of the family dynamic. Casper Jennings voiced Dax Mallard, the confident and restless preteen son, bringing youthful energy to the character. Tresi Gazal, in her film debut, provided the voice for Gwen Mallard, the innocent and lovable daughter. Gazal's casting represented an interesting choice, as she was initially brought in to provide scratch vocals at temporary voice recordings used during animation production. However, her performance proved so effective that she remained as the character's official voice for the finished film. This organic development highlighted the creative flexibility within the production process. Danny DeVito brought his distinctive gravelly voice to Uncle Dan, Mac's curmudgeonly adventurous uncle. DeVito's established persona made him perfect for this role, where his natural comedic timing and vocal qualities enhanced the character's resistant-to-change personality. Keegan-Michael Key voiced Delroy, a homesick Jamaican-accented Scarlett McCaw held captive in a Manhattan restaurant, a role that allowed Key to showcase his vocal range and comedic abilities. Awkwafina brought her signature style to Chomp, the one-footed gritty leader of a New York pigeon gang, infusing the character with attitude and humor. Supporting voice roles added depth to the ensemble. Carol Kane voiced Taryn, a great blue heron who becomes an important ally during the family's journey. David Mitchell provided the voice for Goo Goo, the yogic leader of a duck farm, while Isabel Merced voiced Kim, a duck whose family is also heading to Jamaica. This carefully assembled cast created layered voice performances that elevated the entire production. Animation and visual development. The animation for Migration was handled by Illumination Studios Paris, marking a significant undertaking given the unique visual challenges presented by Renner's filmmaking philosophy. The director faced a fundamental creative challenge, adapting his distinctive minimalist drawing style, developed over years of traditional animation work, to the demands of computer-generated imagery, which typically requires extensive technical detail in modeling, texturing, and rendering. Renner's previous work on the computer-animated film Yellowbird, 2014, provided relevant experience, particularly its approach to avoiding strict photorealism in favor of a more stylized aesthetic. However, Migration presented different artistic objectives and scope. The director articulated a profound difference between traditional and computer animation. Traditional animation is fundamentally additive, adding elements to create the whole, while computer animation is subtractive, removing or simplifying unnecessary elements. With computer animation, Renner found numerous elements he felt didn't belong: excessive texture, overcomplicated lighting schemes, and unnecessary shading details that distracted from character expression and story focus. The character design process proved particularly challenging. Production designer Colin Stimpson and the animation team undertook an intensive study of mallards to create characters that were simultaneously appealing and distinct from one another. A team of 50 animators at Illumination engaged in detailed observation of real ducks, confronting the problem that these creatures are simultaneously strange, complex-looking, and remarkably similar to one another. The challenge lay in designing characters who felt visually appealing and emotionally expressive while remaining recognizably avian and distinct within the ensemble. Renner's approach to character animation drew inspiration from naturally expressive animals in the wild, rather than anthropomorphizing animals in ways that created entirely human-like expressions. He studied how animals naturally communicate emotion through subtle physical changes. This research-driven approach produced characters whose expressions derived from authentic animal behavior, creating a visual vocabulary that felt fresh within animated cinema. The color palette represented a deliberate departure from Illumination's established visual language. Rather than employing the heightened, vibrant color schemes characteristic of many recent Illumination films, the team drew inspiration directly from nature. This naturalistic approach to color created a more grounded visual experience that complemented the story's focus on authentic family relationships and genuine emotional stakes. Production designer Colin Stimpson's visual contributions extended beyond character design to environment creation. His personal trip to New York City informed the film's portrayal of that metropolitan setting, ensuring that the environment felt authentically rendered rather than stylized into an unrecognizable fantasy version. The Jamaica sequence received similarly meticulous attention, with Stimpson drawing inspiration from the Blue Mountains region to create the setting that felt genuinely representative of the destination while maintaining the film's visual consistency. Specific visual sequences drew from distinguished cinematic sources. The scene featuring the Heron couple was influenced by The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, 1920, the German expressionist masterpiece, creating a momentarily unsettling visual language that contrasted with the film's primary aesthetic. Subsequently, the scene where the mallards fly through clouds drew direct inspiration from Renner's observations during his frequent flights to Illumination Studios Paris, translating personal experience into visual poetry. The opening scene received special attention as Renner wanted it to visually distinguish the film from its narrative body. Rather than traditional animation, Renner initially created the sequence traditionally and then had the team recreate it using computer animation while remaining as faithful as possible to the hand-drawn reference. This hybrid approach created an opening that felt distinctly different from the rest of the film, establishing visual interest and signaling to audiences that they were experiencing something stylistically unique. Music and score. On June 18, 2023, the announcement that John Powell would compose Migration's score marked an important creative decision. Powell's involvement represented his second collaboration with Illumination following the Lorax, 2012, indicating a comfortable working relationships between composer and studio. Powell's reputation for creating dynamic, emotionally resonant scores made him an ideal choice for a film that sought to balance comedy with genuine emotional depth. Renner's vision for the score explicitly called for a level of unusual creativity and fun. The director wanted music that could elevate comedic moments while enhancing emotional sequences and character relationships. Powell responded to this challenge by crafting a score that prominently featured string instruments and human vocals, creating an organic, warm sound palette. Powell's approach involved emulating 1960s musical styles, which were characterized by extensive vocal elements. When Renner responded positively to this direction, the composer continued developing this vocal-rich approach. Powell has suggested that he may have received the directing gig partly based on conversations with Renner about his deep admiration for Sergei Prokofiev's Peter and the Wolf. 1936. The classical ballet featuring a narrator and orchestral storytelling. This influence manifested in Powell's approach to creating thematic material that could carry narrative weight and character development through purely musical means. The soundtrack's contemporary music component featured Mon Laferte performing a cover of Destiny's Child's 2001 single Survivor, a recording specifically created for the film. This contemporary music choice provided a bridge between Powell's symphonic work and more popular musical sensibilities, creating variety within the overall soundtrack aesthetic. The complete soundtrack album received release on December 15, 2023, allowing listeners to experience Powell's full compositional vision independent of the film. Released theatrical release and marketing strategy. Migration's world premiere took place on October 19, 2023, as the Grand Summit matinee presentation at the View Conference Expo in Turin, Italy. This premiere venue represented a somewhat unconventional choice, emphasizing the film's artistic credentials and animation industry significance rather than selecting a major commercial film festival. The decision reflected Illumination's desire to position Migration as a serious artistic endeavor within animation circles. The film underwent a significant release date postponement before reaching theaters. Originally scheduled for June 30, 2023. The release was pushed back to December 22, 2023. This delay, spanning 6 months, allowed additional production refinement and gave the studio time to develop comprehensive marketing strategies. DreamWorks Animation's Ruby Gillman, Teenage Kraken ultimately inherited the original June release date, suggesting competitive considerations in the theatrical landscape. When Migration finally arrived in United States theaters on December 22, 2023, it achieved the distinction of being the first animated film released worldwide in the ScreenX format and enhanced cinema experience utilizing panoramic screens. This technological innovation allowed the film to showcase Renner's carefully composed visual language in an expanded format that emphasized the sky and flight sequences. The film was accompanied in theaters by the Despicable Me short film Mooned, connecting Migration thematically to Illumination's established franchises while maintaining its distinct identity. Home media release and streaming distribution. Following its theatrical run, Migration transitioned through the standard windows of media release and streaming availability. The film became available for digital download on January 23, 2024. Providing eager audiences with an opportunity to own the film immediately after its theatrical release window concluded. This relatively quick availability reflected changing consumer preferences for convenient home access to film content. The physical media release occurred on February 27, 2024, when Migration arrived on DVD, Blu-ray, and 4K Ultra HD formats. The home media package included 3 short films: So Fly Hard, Mooned, and Midnight Mission, supplementing the feature with additional entertainment content. This combination strategy ensured that home viewers received comprehensive value packages beyond just the feature presentation. Streaming availability expanded the film's reach considerably. On April 19, 2024, Migration became available on Peacock, Universal's streaming service. The film's availability on Peacock reflected the complex licensing agreements governing theatrical releases and subsequent streaming distribution. Under an 18-month deal between Netflix and Universal for animated films, Migration initially streamed on Peacock for approximately 4 months before migrating, appropriately, to Netflix on August 19, 2024, where it would remain for the next 10 months. This staged distribution strategy maximized licensing value while ensuring the film remained accessible across multiple platforms. Box office performance opening weekend and early theatrical run. Migration faced a competitive theatrical marketplace upon its December 22, 2023 release. The film opened alongside Aquaman and The Lost Kingdom, Anyone But You, and The Iron Claw, creating a crowded holiday release schedule. Pre-release projections estimated the film would earn between $10–15 million from 3,761 theaters during its 4-day opening weekend, a relatively modest projection for a major studio animated feature. The film's opening performance fell somewhat short of even these moderate expectations. Migration made $5.8 million on its first day, including $1.5 million from Thursday night previews. The weekend total reached $12.5 million, allowing the film to finish third at the box office. This result held particular significance as it marked Illumination's lowest-grossing opening weekend, a statistical fact that reflected broader industry trends regarding animated features' theatrical performance and audience preferences during crowded holiday release periods. However, the film demonstrated stronger hold during its second weekend, earning $17.2 million and finishing second at the box office. This improvement suggested positive word-of-mouth and audience enthusiasm despite the modest opening. In its third weekend, the film earned $10 million while finishing in fourth place, showing the expected decline curve as audience interest stabilized at more moderate levels. Worldwide box office total. Migration ultimately grossed $127.6 million in the United States and Canada, which represented a respectable though not exceptional domestic total for an animated feature. International markets provided stronger results, with the film earning $172.6 million in other territories. This international strength reflected global appeal for the film's universal themes and Illumination's significant international audience base. The worldwide total of $300.2 million represented a solid though not blockbuster-level result for the animated feature. The film's financial performance occurred within the context of significant challenges facing original animated films at the theatrical box office. Industry trends suggested that audiences increasingly gravitated toward animated features based on established franchises or familiar intellectual properties rather than original stories, even when those original works featured distinguished creative talent and artistic vision. Migration's ability to gross $300 million worldwide despite these headwinds represented a qualified commercial success, particularly given its December holiday release timing, which traditionally sees audience fragmentation across multiple competing releases. Critical reception. Aggregate critical scores. Migration received generally positive though not universally enthusiastic reviews from professional critics. On the review aggregator website Rotten Tomatoes, the film earned a 73% fresh rating based on 103 critics' reviews, indicating that approximately 3/4 of reviewed critics responded favorably. The average rating reached 6.3 out of 10, suggesting that positive reviews often carried mild rather than effusive enthusiasm. Rotten Tomatoes critical consensus encapsulated this reception pattern. Beautiful animation and entertaining work from a talented voice cast helped Migration take flight in spite of a story that doesn't quite stand out from the flock. This summary acknowledges the film's visual and performance achievements while suggesting narrative limitations. Metacritic's weighted average provided a more conservative assessment, assigning Migration a score of 56 out of 100 based on 25 professional critics. This score typically indicates mixed or average reviews in Metacritic's classification system, suggesting that while some critics found merit in the film, others had significant reservations. That discrepancy between Rotten Tomatoes' 73% positive rating and Metacritic's 56 score likely reflects Metacritic's methodology of weighing influential critics' opinions more heavily, potentially capturing the views of more skeptical professional voices. Audience reception. however, diverged notably from critical assessments. Audiences surveyed by CinemaScore provided an average grade of A on the A+ to F scale, indicating substantial audience satisfaction. Post-Track reported that 79% of filmgoers gave the film a positive score, with 52% stating they would definitely recommend the film to others. This gaps between critical and audience response suggested that viewers, particularly families and younger audiences, found greater satisfaction in the film than professional critics. Critical analysis and specific reviews. Individual critics' responses illuminated different aspects of the film's reception. Lockroy Stefan Dreyfus found the plot rather predictable but awarded the film 3 stars out of 5, praising its sense of burlesque and comedic sensibility. This assessment balanced criticism of narrative predictability with appreciation for tonal execution and humor. The Los Angeles Times' Michael Ordo A+± criticized the plot's unambitious nature, suggesting that the narrative didn't aspire to innovative storytelling. However, Ordo A+± simultaneously praised the film for differentiating itself from Illumination's previous filmography, particularly regarding animation, humor, and voice performances. This review captured a common critical tension, acknowledging the film's quality execution while expressing disappointment in its narrative conservatism. The Hollywood Reporter's Lavia Gyarkai offered more enthusiastic praise, commending the film's direction, humor, and emotional core. Gyarkai concluded that the considerable appeal perhaps lies in the simplicity of its premise. The hardest part of embarking on any new journey is taking off. This perspective reframed the narrative simplicity as a strength rather than a limitation, appreciating how the film distilled its themes into accessible yet meaningful storytelling. The San Francisco Chronicle's Saki Hassan provided a comparative analysis, favorably contrasting Migration with Illumination's other 2023 film, the Super Mario Bros. Movie. Hassan argued that while the Mario film succeeded through multi-generational nostalgia, Migration achieved higher artistic ground by creating an original world and investing audiences in the characters' journeys. This review recognized Migration's artistic ambitions and execution even while acknowledging commercial realities. The Globe and Mail's Aparita Banuri felt the film successfully balanced appealing to both younger and older audiences, with particular praise directed toward Tresi Gazal's voice performance as Gwen. This assessment recognized the film's intergenerational appeal as a significant achievement. Not all reviews proved favorable. The Seattle Times' Soren Anderson gave the film only 2 out of 4 stars, contending that it lacked appeal for adult audiences and criticizing its lack of subtlety in presenting its themes. This perspective suggested that while the film worked for younger viewers, more sophisticated audiences found it less satisfying. The Associated Press's Jake Coyle commended the animation's warm cartoon tones and lush sense of color but felt the story proved unoriginal, concluding that the film never quite spreads its wings. This critique balanced visual appreciation with narrative disappointment. The Washington Post's Kristen Page Kirby similarly praised the animation while finding the story lacked memorability. She concluded with the observation that Migration will be remembered as neither great nor terrible. It will simply fade into the cinematic ether like so many ducks in the wind. This sardonic assessment epitomized the critical perspective that the film, while competent and occasionally delightful, lacked distinctive storytelling that would create lasting impressions. IGN's Ryan Gower gave the film a 5 out of 10. Acknowledging it represented a step above Illumination's previous work regarding animation and character dynamics, but feeling weighed down by a tedious plot and the typical brand of Illumination humor. This review captured the perspective that while individual elements showed achievement, the overall package proved less satisfying than the sum of its parts might suggest. Summary of critical themes. Several consistent themes emerged from the critical response. First, almost universally, reviewers praised the animation's quality, visual style, and distinctive approach. The film's aesthetic represented a genuine accomplishment that distinguished it from typical animated features. Second, voice performances generally received positive recognition, with particular praise for the ensemble work and character authenticity. Third, Critics recognized the film's humor and ability to entertain audiences across age groups. However, critics widely noted that the narrative proved relatively conventional and predictable. While appreciating the film's execution of familiar story beats and themes, reviewers felt the plot followed established patterns without offering significant innovation or surprise. The film's earnest sincerity about family relationships and facing fears seemed to some critics to lack the cynical edge or creative unpredictability that might elevate it beyond competent entertainment. The gaps between critical and audience reception suggested different evaluation criteria. Critics assessed the film against artistic ambitions and storytelling innovation, areas where it showed limitations. Audiences, particularly families, evaluated the film primarily on its ability to entertain, its emotional resonance, and its quality as a shared viewing experience, areas where it succeeded substantially. Awards and recognition. Despite mixed critical reception, Migration earned recognition across several awards platforms. The film received nominations and wins in categories recognizing achievement in animation, music, and technical filmmaking. The 2023 Hollywood Music and Media Awards recognized the film's musical contributions. The Annie Awards, the animation industry's primary honors, included Migration among the year's honored films. The Visual Effects Society recognized achievements in animated visual effects. The Motion Picture Sound Editors Golden Reel Awards acknowledged the film's sound design and mixing achievements. These various nominations and awards demonstrated that while critics expressed reservations about narrative innovation, the film's technical and artistic execution earned substantial recognition within professional communities. Animation, music, and sound design professionals affirmed the quality of their collaborative work on the project. Conclusion: Migration stands as a significant entry in contemporary animated cinema, representing an important statement about artistic vision within major studio systems. Benjamin Renner's involvement and distinctive visual approach created a film that, while commercially modest and narratively conventional, demonstrated that studio-backed animation could pursue fresh visual and tonal directions while maintaining mainstream appeal. The film's ultimate achievement lay not in revolutionary storytelling but in demonstrating that careful attention to craft, thoughtful character development, and auteur sensibility could produce engaging entertainment that resonated with audiences even when critical consensus remained measured. The gap between critical and audience reception reflected different evaluation standards, with viewers appreciating the film's emotional sincerity and visual beauty even as critics sought greater narrative innovation. Migration's legacy may ultimately involve its role in encouraging major studios to consider auteur-driven animated projects, recognizing that distinctive directorial vision could coexist with accessible storytelling. The film's financial success, while not blockbuster level, proved sufficient to validate Illumination's investment in original projects helmed by internationally acclaimed filmmakers. In this context, Migration's true significance extends beyond its box office numbers or critical scores to its demonstration that the animation industry could pursue ambitious artistic goals while remaining accessible to family audiences. For viewers, Migration offered an entertaining, visually distinctive, and emotionally sincere story about family, personal growth, and the courage required to face life's challenges. Its achievement lay in delivering these themes with professional excellence and artistic attention, qualities that ultimately resonated across audiences regardless of critical reservations about narrative convention. In the landscape of contemporary animated features, Migration represented a meaningful step toward recognizing that animation could accommodate both commercial success and artistic aspiration, even when neither reached their absolute highest levels. Review.1 With the holiday season coming to an end, I can only talk about what made a movie like Migration a relative hit, as opposed to talking about its future. And that reason is that it was a compromise movie for families looking for a way to kill time together during the holiday break. Wonka, while the biggest hit of the season, came out 2 weeks ago, so migrant, fear the dangers of the outside world. But Mother Pam, Elizabeth Banks, is pretty sure they can handle some adventure if they stick together. Her attitude rubs off on the kids, and they want to migrate to Jamaica for the winter, but Mac forbids it. He's backed up by lazy slob Uncle Dan, Danny DeVito, who leads a sedentary, washed-out life. Uncle Don's bad example is enough to convince Mac that the family needs a vacation after all. Mac reluctantly leads the family, including Uncle Dan, toward Jamaica, but they soon get stuck in a miserable rainstorm. Pam tries to play the "it's all part of the adventure and we'll laugh about this later" cards, as parents tend to do when things go wrong on vacation, but it's clear things are off to a bad start. Things get even worse when a heroine, Carol Kane, offers the family refuge in her home, and they have to spend the night in the home of a frightening predator. It turns out that the real predator is a fish that has swam into the flooded house, but it's an unnerving experience all the same. The family gets lost and ends up in New York City, though I have no idea where they started, so NYC could be South for all I know, where they befriend local streetwise pigeon chomp, Aquafina. She makes the inevitable joke confusing Jamaica the country with the Queen's neighborhood or once and then leaves it alone, which was a relief to me. I thought the characters would spend about an hour making that mistake. Chomp takes them to imprisoned Macaw Delroy, Keegan-Michael Key, who can give them directions to Jamaica, but they decide they can't just leave him in his cage. They need to break him out so he can take them there himself. This angers his mute owner, who happens to be a chef that specializes in cooking ducks. The family spends the rest of the movie battling the chef, who has his own private helicopter so they can have a confrontation later at a duck farm, disguised an avian-friendly vacation resort for some reason, even though this isn't Wonka and humans don't need to con the ducks. And then further down the coast in the third act, Migration isn't a particularly imaginative family film. It's certainly cute and harmless enough that I don't think anybody will truly detest it, even if they're well outside the target audience. But it's not the kind that I think parents will enjoy as much as their kids, save for the completely plausible possibility that the kids find it dull too. Grade C. Migration is rated PG for action, peril and mild rude humor. Its running time is 83 minutes, plus 9 for the pre-feature animated short Mooned, which follows villain Vector, Jason Segel, after the events of 2010's Despicable Me. I didn't find the short funny, but I'm glad the franchise is keeping the character alive, as I thought he was funny in the first movie and would like to see him return for future installments. Review. 2 With the holiday season coming to an end, I can only talk about what made a movie like Migration a relative hit, as opposed to talking about its future. And that reason is that it was a compromise movie for families looking for a way to kill time together during the holiday break. Wonka, while the biggest hit of the season, came out 2 weeks ago, so Migration probably gobbled up some business from families that had already seen it. Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom didn't appeal to non-so fans, and was terrible to boot. The Color Purple is better than all these movies. Seriously, I highly recommend that one, but with its heavy subject matter, isn't exactly fun for the whole family. The compromise was to take the kids to the animated duck movie. The Mallard family make their home in a small rural pond. Father Mac, Kumail Nanjiani, teaches son Dax, Casper Jennings, and daughter Gwen, Tresi Gazal, to fear the dangers of the outside world. But Mother Pam, Elizabeth Banks, is pretty sure they can handle some adventure if they stick together. Her attitude rubs off on the kids, and they want to migrate to Jamaica for the winter, but Mac forbids it. He's backed up by lazy slob Uncle Dan, Danny DeVito, who leads a sedentary, washed-out life. Uncle Don's bad example is enough to convince Mac that the family needs a vacation after all. Mac reluctantly leads the family, including Uncle Dan, toward Jamaica, but they soon get stuck in a miserable rainstorm. Pam tries to play the "it's all part of the adventure and we'll laugh about this later" cards, as parents tend to do when things go wrong on vacation, but it's clear things are off to a bad start. Things get even worse when a heroine, Carol Kane, offers the family refuge in her home, and they have to spend the night in the home of a frightening predator. It turns out that the real predator is a fish that has swam into the flooded house, but it's an unnerving experience all the same. The family gets lost and ends up in New York City, though I have no idea where they started, so NYC could be South for all I know, where they befriend local streetwise pigeon chomp, Aquafina. She makes the inevitable joke confusing Jamaica the country with the Queen's neighborhood or once and then leaves it alone, which was a relief to me. I thought the characters would spend about an hour making that mistake. Chump takes them to imprisoned Macaw Delroy, Keegan-Michael Key, who can give them directions to Jamaica, but they decide they can't just leave him in his cage. They need to break him out so he can take them there himself. This angers his mute owner, who happens to be a chef that specializes in cooking ducks. The family spends the rest of the movie battling the chef, who has his own private helicopter so they can have a confrontation later at a duck farm, disguised an avian-friendly vacation resort for some reason, even though this isn't Wonka and humans don't need to con the ducks. And then further down the coast in the third act, Migration isn't a particularly imaginative family film. It's certainly cute and harmless enough that I don't think anybody will truly detest it, even if they're well outside the target audience. But it's not the kind that I think parents will enjoy as much as their kids, save for the completely plausible possibility that the kids find it dull too. Grade C. Migration is rated PG for action, peril and mild rude humor. Its running time is 83 minutes, +9 for the pre-feature animated short Mooned, which follows villain Vector, Jason Segel, after the events of 2010's Despicable Me. I didn't find the short funny, but I'm glad the franchise is keeping the character alive, as I thought he was funny in the first movie and would like to see him return for future installments. Review. 3 In a medium where stop-motion chickens organize elaborate escape plans, computer-generated ducks have to do a lot more than relocate to amuse us. Illumination's Migration, about a fussy duck dad who reluctantly reconsiders his fear of flying, is a cartoon in search of concept, where the most daring idea is hiring the Oscar-nominated co-director of 2012's Ernest Celestine and asking him to abandon that movie's unique watercolor style in favor of a relatively standard digital approach. At least the backgrounds are eye-catching, as a waddle of mallards crack jokes amid beautiful fall foliage. In the opening scene, director Benjamin Renner teases what Migration might have looked like had Illumination honcho Chris Meledandri let him stick to his signature aesthetic, rather than bend it to the studio's house style. Mild-headed, overprotective Mac, comedian Kumail Nanjiani, quite literally quacking his lines, tells his kids, Dax, Casper Jennings, and Gwen, Tresi Gazal, scary bedtime stories so they won't dream of leaving the pond. The sequence is rendered in appealing 2D, with the sort of thick brushstrokes and endearing design Renner brought to his Big Bad Fox comics. It's sad that Mac and his more adventurous partner, Pam, Elizabeth Banks, who's longing for a change of scenery, have a pair of differently aged offspring instead of several cute ducklings, unless you figure that these aren't really ducks but stand-ins for a 4-person human family, with crazy Uncle Dan, Danny DeVito, along for additional laughs. As Migration settles into the look that will last the rest of the film, of painterly backgrounds populated by bland, bulgy-eyed birds, it's clear what we're in for. Another kids' movie in which grown-ups must overcome their narrow-mindedness. From Encanto to the aforementioned Chicken Run, Dawn of the Nugget, this has become a running theme in 21st century animation, which no longer aims to teach impressionable young viewers a lesson, preferring to reinforce the idea that they live in a world where authority figures are wrong, or at the very least, too conservative, and really ought to listen to their kiddos. Migration tweaks that a smidge, emphasizing that Max should put more stock in what his wife thinks. Do ducks have wives? This one does. And maybe a divorce in his future. Mac's parents may have taught him to stay close to the nest, but that's terribly impractical in winter. And so, for the first time in his life, he agrees to fly south, except, instead of joining a flock that knows where it's going, Mac insists on being his own navigator, setting off in the opposite direction of the many V-shaped formations headed the other way. Again, the story, credited to Renner and screenwriter Mike White of White Lotus, isn't really about ducks so much as the obvious limitations of an inflexible father-knows-best mindset. After leaving the gorgeous golds and ochres of their pond behind, the 5 ducks touch down for the night in an ominous swamp, where a pair of potentially frightening storks offer them shelter. Renner plays the sequence for maximum ambiguity, such that we can never be sure whether their haggard host, Aaron, Carol Kane, is being gracious or hungrily hatching a plan to eat the ducks the instant they drop off, Probably doesn't help that she offers them a frying pan to sleep in. Most of Migration boils down to presenting the family with dangerous situations that, when the ducks work together, they prove perfectly capable of managing. Next stop is New York City, which emerges from dense clouds the way Skull Island might in a King Kong movie. It's instructive and more than a little bit stressful to discover a human metropolis from a duck's perspective, though the introduction of human characters almost spoils what Migration had going for it. In a twist of incredibly rotten luck, the birds wind up in a fancy restaurant, where a lunatic known only as Chef Boris Reiner specializes in duck ate de la range. Suddenly, this high-altitude road trip has a villain, a broken bar, and a good reason for Mac to have stayed home. Of the 13 films over 13 years released by Illumination prior to this one, no character has looked more unappealing than the oddly proportioned chef, whose pin-headed appearance suggests an uncomfortable cross between Ozzy Osbourne and Andrew Tate. With his greasy hair and gross goatee, the heavily tattooed freak show scowls behind diamond-shaped specs, going from mere kitchen tyrant to mortal enemy of all that kind. It's hard not to think that some earlier draft might have relied a little less, or not at all, on this character. A better one would have given him an accent worth imitating and some of the movie's most memorable lines. Instead, it's Chef's pet, captive parrot Delroy, Keegan-Michael Key, who steals this segment. Delroy hails from Jamaica, and with his help, the ducks should eventually be able to find their way south. Even at just 70-something minutes before credits, the movie seems to take forever getting to its destination, delivering its funniest bit up front in the form of Mooned, a 10-minute short that catches up with Despicable Me villain Vector, Jason Segel, in Exile. And thus, Migration finds a way to work in Minions. That's essentially what Illumination audiences want anyway. Not ducks. In that department, Donald and Daffy pretty much have it covered. Among this year tunes, the chickens ran away with the show. Or, as that poet of poultry Ogden Nash put it, behold the duck, it does not cluck, a cluck it lacks, it quacks. Review. For creators of the Super Mario Bros. Movie and Minions invites you to take flight to a funny, feathered family vacation. The Mallard family is in a bit of rut. While Dad Mac is content to keep his family safe paddling around the pond forever, Mom Pam is eager to show their kids a son Dax and daughter Gwen the whole world. When Migrating Duck family lands in their pond with thrilling tales of far-flung places, Pam persuades Mac to embark on a family trip, via New York to tropical Jamaica. Review. 5 Chris Meledandria's Illumination Animation House has had a boatload of hits from Despicable Me and Minions to 2023's global smash The Super Mario Bros. Movie. But in between, this underrated, in terms of awards, producer of delightful and genuinely funny tunes creates new franchises by embracing originals such as The Secret Life of Pets and Sing, winners both in my book. Now, just in time for the holidays, comes Migration, about a family of ducks on the adventure of a lifetime. It is the kind of animated entertainment that all ages will find something to like, and in terms of the creative talent involved, it is a breath of fresh air in the genre. Migration has a screenplay by none other than the White Lotus Emmy winner Mike White, who also gets credit for developing the original story with French animation director Benjamin Renner. The latter did the wonderful 2D animated film Ernest and Celestine in 2012, and he has been brought into the Illumination fold to lead his first studio and 3D animation effort, and it does not disappoint, especially if you love ducks. The Mallard family has a nice, dependable life in the pond, and Dad Mac, Kumail Nanjiani, does not want to rock the boat or leave what he already knows. Wife Pam, Elizabeth Banks, on the other hand, is yearning for a vacation and urges him to loosen up so they can take the kids, Dax, Casper Jennings, and duckling Gwen, Tresi Gazal, on an adventure to Jamaica. After a hearty-heart with grouchy Uncle Dan, Danny DeVito, who believes firmly in the status quo, Mac realizes he has been missing what life is all about. Fearing that he will turn into his uncle, he agrees to take the clan and fly off on a trip of a lifetime. Along the way, things don't go so well. First they run into a rather frightening errand heroine, Carol Kane, in a sequence that looks right out of a horror movie. But appearances are deceiving. and Aaron becomes a wise friend rather than a foe. Later they encounter a gang of NYC pigeons ready to rumble with arch-enemy ducks, but it turns out that the leader of the group is Chomp, Awkwafina, who instead of a Jets versus Sharks type confrontation is quite helpful to the Mallards. So is Jamaican parrot Delroy, Keegan-Michael Key, who is eager to escape the confines of the cage he is stuck in at a local restaurant. He offers to guide them all to Jamaica, and away from the prospect of the evil chef, Boris Rehliner, who would like to turn them into duck ate Ildler Range. There are more unexpected stops along the way, including a weird duck farm and its Yogic leader Gugu, David Mitchell, where things get a bit dicey and slicey. All of this is punctuated with white signature deadpan humor and smart, funny dialogue, with each character given distinct individual traits, some good, some not so. The voice work is exceptional all around, and the animation spotlighting several different picaresque locales is a step above the norm for this type of studio tune. Reiner's background in traditional drawing comes in handy to deliver a more visually appealing look. John Powell's score augments the action nicely, and this fun flick just flies by in a very entertaining hour and a half. Migration is mainly in it for the laughs, but it has much to say about family and stepping out of your comfort zone to find out exactly what you may be missing before it all passes you by. Review. 6 I had my qualms going into Migration, as animated movies aimed at kids can sometimes be cloying in their attempts to pander to parents and other adults. Director Benjamin Renner, who also shares credit for the story, avoids this pitfall by opting for a more straightforward sincerity. Aided by Mike White's, of The White Lotus and School of Rock fame, smart screenplay. The lesson of the movie is laid out plainly in the opening scenes, but the characters are charming enough to set aside the feeling of being schooled by the screen. As for signs of out-of-the-box storytelling, Migration doesn't take as many chances as its characters do, but Illumination's latest animated adventure story is breathtaking when it truly takes flight. Considering that the film's premise rests on the concept of adventure versus safety, the narrative does not often stray from the unexpected, but the at times gorgeous visuals and carefully crafted relationship dynamics help the moments of supposed surprise feel earned. When all was said and done, I came away feeling the studio had succeeded in creating their first truly memorable original characters outside the Despicable Me franchise. What is Migration about? Migration begins in the safest place possible for a family of mallards at the local pond, which they have not left for as long as they can remember. They are constantly forced to remember that fact thanks to the patriarch of the family, Mac, Kumail Nanjiani, in a thoroughly endearing vocal performance, who regales his children with tales of the terror that lies just outside their comfortable home. His partner Pam, Elizabeth Banks, however, longs for adventure and would happily face a myriad of fears if it meant a sneak peek of the world beyond. Migration is an animated adventure comedy from Illumination and features an ensemble cast including Kumail Nanjiani, Elizabeth Banks, Awkwafina, and Keegan-Michael Key. The cast takes on the role of a family of mallards who has lived in the safety of their pond all their lives and decide to migrate for a vacation. However, when the family discovers they migrated the wrong way, they end up in New York City, forcing them to find a way out and down to the Caribbean. When the opportunity presents itself to migrate to Jamaica for the winter, Mac decides to brave the skies and prove to Pam that he still has a zest for life. The couple pack up their kids and Uncle Dan, Danny DeVito at his grouchiest and most delightful, setting off for the trip of a lifetime. Naturally, countless obstacles appear before them, testing each character's resolve, though Mac is undoubtedly the duck with the largest learning curve. They meet several new friends along the way, most notably a city pigeon named Chomp. Awkwafina's vocal performance is an enjoyable cross between a Godfather homage and a Natasha Lyon impression, and a Jamaican parrot named Delroy. Keegan-Michael Key is pitch perfect here, and their family is all the better for it. Migration makes excellent use of perspective. Migration's central thesis may be obvious, but it arrives at its conclusion in a heartwarming and creative fashion. The opening sequence breaks from the computer-animated style of the rest of the movie to render Mac's bedtime story to his kids, and the picture he paints shifts every time Pam interrupts to redirect the tale. This trick is sadly not repeated, but it helps set the film apart early on and enforces that the Mallards are the architects of their own story. Humans do not feature heavily in the movie, and the ones that do, as such as the lackluster chef, who is out to make the perfect duck arrange, are not particularly memorable. But what is memorable is how Migration only shows feet and legs for the most part, highlighting the relative size of the ducks and thus the obvious danger they are in if they are caught by one of those enormous people. My favorite characteristic of the film's humans was their lack of dialogue. Speech is reserved for animals alone, save for one spectacular salsive rendition of Survivor by Destiny's Child. Migration's adventure story coasts as often as it soars. The biggest drawback of Migration is that it doesn't play to its strengths as often as it should. There are high points throughout the film, both on a visual and thematic level, such as the family playing in the clouds or dancing their way through a crowd of people to escape an imminent threat. Yet at the same time, there are lulls where the same gag is repeated thrice to make sure the audience has finished laughing before moving forward with the story. That's not to say that the movie lags at any point, but it doesn't reach the heights that both its creative team and cast are capable of. It does land in an exciting place, nevertheless, which offers enjoyment for children and adults alike. Many family-centric scenes contain thoughtful lessons for young viewers to absorb, but they never forego the entertainment factor. Casper Jennings and Tresi Gazal are also to be commended for carrying such a large portion of Migration on their backs as young Dax and Gwen respectively, and it was unironically a joy for me to watch their ducklings come of age. The final act is triumphant for the whole family, and it's hard not to dance along in your theater seat with the ducks that Renner and White have created with such care. Review. 7 The movie never soars too high or plunges very deep emotionally, but it is a charming and wholesome story the whole family can enjoy. About the film. Earlier this year, Disney CEO Bob Iger asserted that to win back audiences, the primary objective for movies needs to be providing entertainment rather than pushing messages. Migration is not a Disney film, it is from Illumination, but it is a template for that conviction. The movie never soars too high or plunges very deep emotionally, but it is a charming and wholesome story offering simple entertainment the whole family can enjoy. Migration's story is simple. A family of 4 ducks, along with a delightfully crazy uncle, decide to leave the safe sanctuary of their familiar lake to experience the wider world as they attempt to migrate to John Mesa. The journey quickly goes awry, leading to a series of amusing episodic adventures. Some older audiences may find the story too simplistic, but its straightforward approach makes it an easily accessible and digestible film. The movie is consistently entertaining, even if the isolated adventures never add up to much more than the sum of its parts. Outside of a short opening sequence, the film also bucks the recent trend of creatively fusing together different aesthetic styles or animation approaches. There's nothing unique or inventive about the visuals, but Migration is a pleasant-looking film. Everything is vibranter and brightly colored. The film also gives its story room to breathe and makes the most of its warm visuals, such as a beautiful scene in which the ducks playfully soar through the clouds and throw clouds like snowballs. The movie compensates for its lack of emotional and thematic depth with plenty of humor. In fact, Migration is hilarious. Perhaps it merely tickles the feathers of my own personal sense of humor, but it had me laughing out loud more than I have in many movies this year. There are some slapstick and physical gags to please younger viewers as well as some instances of clever Bluey-esque humor that will be relatable for parents. In several ways, Migration is a quintessential family film. Content-wise, it is one of the cleanest animated movies of the year. Thankfully, it lacks the unwanted language or sexual elements that have plagued some other family films, making it a safe and wholesome entertainment choice for families. In another sense, it is also a film that centers on family and the strength that comes from a loving and united family. Migration may not have the captivating magic of some beloved animated films or the tear-jerking emotional resonance of early Pixar movies, but it is an uplifting story the whole family can enjoy. It's a simple film, but it's a fun adventure, and like The Family of Ducks, sometimes it's worthwhile to set aside the anxieties and trials of life from time to time to go breezing through the clouds, laughing and enjoying life together. Language. There are several exclamations of "oh my gosh," one use of "heck," and at least one use of "stupid." Violence. The father tells a frightening bedtime story to his kids in which the young heroes are killed by predators. Although the mother repeatedly interjects with happier endings, the duck family frets that a couple of crazed herons are planning to eat them and discovers some fish bones from the last guest. In a restaurant, the characters see cooked duck. Obviously bad news for a duck. A villainous chef carries around a knife. Sexuality. A boy is infatuated with a girl, and after she leaves, his little sister innocently chirps, "I'm sorry you can't have babies with her." Later, when reunited with the girl, the sister blurts out that her brother says her name in his sleep. The family stumbles upon a room full of ducks doing a duckified version of relaxation yoga, featuring elements such as egg position, etc. Strength of the family. Migration is all about family and how each member plays an important role within the family unit. The story is less plot-driven and more about spending time with the family as they attempt to navigate the various joys and challenges of life together. Throughout the various adventures, each of the family members is given an opportunity to be the hero, while also gaining a deeper appreciation for the strengths and perspectives of the others. The anxious, worried father finds strength in his wife's carefree attitude, while she learns to appreciate her husband's caution. The children learn to trust their parents' wisdom, but the parents must also trust their children's potential. After the movie, my 8-year-old son shared that the lesson was to be adventurous. "My son is not always the quickest to step out of his comfort zone or try new things, especially when there's a chance of failure, so this was a welcome lesson for the film to explore." In many ways, the concerns and fears that kept the family contained in their lake sanctuary are validated. The world is a dangerous place, yet, by facing those challenges alongside others, the experiences are worthwhile. The movie encourages children to be brave and step out of their comfort zones, while suggesting that parents must loosen their tight clutch and allow their children the opportunity to experience the ups and downs of life. Review. 8 Universal and Illumination's latest animated film centers on a family of ducks who decides to leave the safety of a New England pond for an adventurous trip to Jamaica. However, their well-laid plans quickly go awry when they get lost and wind up in New York City. Universal. Disney dropped the animation crown. Universal has picked it up. And, with Migration opening Friday, the studio is looking to strengthen its grip. Migration, a comic tale about a family of New England ducks that leave their pond for Jamaica, but end up in New York City, is expected to tally $25 million during its domestic debut. Universal has more conservative expectations, forecasting between $10 million and $15 million in ticket sales for the film's opening. While that pales in comparison to the $100 million-plus debuts of Illumination/Universal's The Super Mario Bros. Movie and the latest Minions film, it's comparable to the studio and DreamWorks Animation's Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, which ran in theaters for several months, securing nearly $500 million globally. A Cube Day. Migration, with solid word-of-mouth and strong reviews, will have to be judged more on its long-term results than the opening weekend splash, said Paul Dergarabedian, senior media analyst at Comscore. Disney's most recent animated film Wish failed to connect with audiences. After generating $31.6 million domestically over the 5-day Thanksgiving holiday, the film has grossed a total of $55.2 million in the US and Canada. Globally, the film has reached $127.1 million. The film had a budget of $200 million, not including marketing costs. For comparison, Trolls Band Together, which was released the week before Thanksgiving, secured $30 million for its 3-day debut and nearly $180 million worldwide. The film had a budget of $95 million, not including marketing costs. Representatives from Disney did not immediately respond to CNBC's request for comment. How Disney Lost the Crown. Ariana DeBose stars as Asha in Disney's new animated film Wish. Disney established its animated feature empire in the early 20th century with 1937 A Squared Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs and continued to dominate, more or less, into the 1980s and 1990s with The Little Mermaid and Beauty and the Beast. Later, it acquired Pixar, which together with Walt Disney Animation, generated billions in box office receipts for the company. The world of feature animation has been dominated for decades by Disney, and for good reason, said Durgarabadian. They set the gold standard. Then came the COVID pandemic. While theaters closed, Disney sought to pad its fledgling streaming service Disney Plus with content, stretching its creative teams thin, and sending theatrical movies during the pandemic straight to digital. The decision trained parents to seek out new Disney titles on streaming, not theaters, even when Disney opted to return its films to the big screen. Compounding Disney's woes was a general sense from audiences that the company's content had grown overly existential and too concerned with social issues beyond the reach of children. As a result, no Disney animated feature from Pixar or Walt Disney Animation has generated more than $480 million at the global box office since 2019. I think what's changed is that Disney doesn't get the benefit of the doubt, said Josh Brown, CEO at Reitholtz Wealth Management and a CNBC contributor. And people will not go to a movie just because it's the latest Disney movie in the way that previous generations did. Universal appeal. Meanwhile, Universal's two animation arms, Illumination and DreamWorks, have thrived. Illumination's Minions: The Rise of Gru, which opened in 2022, tallied $942 million worldwide. DreamWorks' Puss in Boots: The Last Wish capped at $485 million after its holiday 2022 opening, and Illumination's The Super Mario Bros. Movie soared to more than $1.3 billion in 2023. Even the Magic Kingdom was impressed with the box office of Super Mario. Disney CEO Bob Iger praised the rival studio back in May during the company's fiscal second quarter earnings call. Review.9: A couple of weeks ago, I finally went to see Migration in the movie theaters. The reason I wanted to see this movie was not only for its cute animated characters, but for its hilarious cast. Stars like Awkwafina, Crazy Rich Asians, Danny DeVito, the Lorax, and Keegan-Michael Key and Peele, were in it alongside many more beloved actresses and actors. They really made Migration laugh out loud worthy. Migration is about the Mallards, a duck family, who live in a quaint pond. Mac Mallard, the father duck, loves this quiet pond and teaches his family to never leave the pond because it may be dangerous. One day a group of ducks migrating to Jamaica invites them along. Gwen, Dax, the children ducks, and Pam Mallard, the mother duck, all want to explore. However, Mac condescendingly declines the ducks' offer. The movie does start slow and I didn't really like that. However, I interpreted it as a mirror to the Mallards' life. Slow with no risk. I will say it is a trust the process type of movie, but worth it. Within many exchanges between Mac and his family wanting to see something other than the pond, it's hilarious to watch and relatable. With every decision comes a risk, and for Mac that risk was the safety of his family. Sometimes risks pan out to wonderful results, even with bumps along the way. We see this a lot in Migration. For instance, after Mac is convinced to take his family and migrate to Jamaica, they get lost and accidentally land in New York. While Mac is scared for his family, Pam adapts to the harsh New York way in order to earn the respect of a tough one-footed pigeon in her flock. She in turn finds help for the Mallard family to go to Jamaica. Gwen embraces the beauty of New York and Dax tries to take on more responsibility. In Migration, none of the characters are 2D and lack depth or get lost in the story. The animation is so beautiful and you can see the different details and colors of each bird. The scenery will engulf you. Migration is rated PG, however, it's entertaining for all ages, even for those who aren't animation fans. Those who love Key and Peele understand that Key shows his over-the-top personality in everything he does. He plays a locked-up multicolored Jamaican parrot. His character's name is Delroy and was my favorite out of the entire cast. You find yourself waiting for him to say something knowing you will laugh. I feel that way about anything Key is a part of. I would give Migration a 4 out of 5 stars. It is great for the entire family, even with the slow start. The writers put jokes in for the adults in the family, and they also implemented life lessons for everyone to learn. The animation is beautiful all throughout and just a relaxing, enjoyable movie. Review. 10 Illumination has a proven track record, having created some of the greatest animated characters of recent years, with each new installment pushing their animation style further. Migration continues this trend and showcases the talent this team has for the animated arts. Humans play a tiny part in this story, but that hasn't stopped the team at Illumination from using the character models to portray some very particular traits from the voice cast. The Mallards have always been a quiet family of ducks, living a simple life, blissfully unaware of the world outside of their New England pond life. Days are filled with foraging around the pond and fixing up the den, while nights are filled with Father Mac telling his favorite stories of herons, eagles and all manner of animals that want duck on the menu. Mac is a bit of a worrier, as the father, his job is to keep his family safe, a job he takes a little too seriously. Mom Pam is a dreamer. Drax, the eldest, is fully in his teenage years and pushing boundaries, while little sister Gwen is just adorable. The Mallards' peaceful ways are changed one fateful afternoon when a group of migrating ducks land on the pond for a break. Dax, full of bravado, introduces himself to the visitors and, much to the dismay of his father, throws open the idea of them joining in on the trip. The ever-cautious Mac puts a stop to those ideas and tries to get back to the way things were, even if his family isn't in agreement this time. After some time deliberating on just what it is he wants out of life for him and his family, Mac decides to wake everyone with the news they are going to migrate south for the winter, all the way to Jamaica. Even grumpy old Uncle Dan is on board. The journey south is where all the fun begins. The Mallards, having never left the safety of their pond, are in for the trip of a lifetime, opening their hearts and minds to all the beauty their world has to offer. Along the way they will face many obstacles, growing as not only individuals but even closer as a family. The voice cast is an eclectic ensemble featuring a varied range of personalities, each suited perfectly for their role. Kumail Nanjiani, Mac, and Elizabeth Banks, Pam, bounce off each other while making sure their kids are safe, while Danny DeVito, Uncle Dan, all but steals each scene from them. Awkwafina, whom I'll admit has grown on me in recent roles, plays a gritty New York pigeon in a role perfectly suited to her sense of humor, while Keegan-Michael Key once again turns a bit part into a starring role with his performance. Those of us a little older may even notice a ghost of Christmas Present making an appearance as a heron that I shouldn't have been laughing at as much as I did. With most animated movies, there is more of a theme behind the main premise, and Migration is no different. Migration is all about the journey and who it is that you are taking that journey with. We get to watch Mac evolve from an overprotective father to someone leading the way for his family and showing just how much he loves them by his actions and the joy he gets from watching them experience new things in life. It is about finding that balance between trying new things, meeting new friends, while still doing everything in your power to protect the ones you love. There are many moments between the siblings that remind us that sibling rivalry is a thing, and most certainly a healthy thing when nurtured correctly. Not to mention the fact that while little sisters may be adorable, it doesn't matter what species they are, still a pest, a broken bar. Migration is shaping up to be the perfect Christmas blockbuster to take your kids to see on the big screen. At a comfortable 91 minutes, it is a great length for the younger audience and doesn't have anything on screen to scare the little ones. Plenty of laughs were had during my screening from the full spectrum of ages, with parents getting a couple of jokes the kids completely missed. Review. 11 Earlier this year, Disney CEO Bob Iger asserted that to win back audiences, the primary objective for movies needs to be providing entertainment rather than pushing messages. Migration is not a Disney film, it is from Illumination, but it is a template for that conviction. The movie never soars too high or plunges very deep emotionally, but it is a charming and wholesome story offering simple entertainment the whole family can enjoy. Migration's story is simple. A family of 4 ducks, along with a delightfully crazy uncle, decide to leave the safe sanctuary of their familiar lake to experience the wider world as they attempt to migrate to Jamaica. The journey quickly goes awry, leading to a series of amusing episodic adventures. Some older audiences may find the story too simplistic, but its straightforward approach makes it an easily accessible and digestible film. The movie is consistently entertaining, even if the isolated adventures never add up to much more than the sum of its parts. Outside of a short opening sequence, the film also bucks the recent trend of creatively fusing together different aesthetic styles or animation approaches. There's nothing unique or inventive about the visuals, but Migration is a pleasant-looking film. Everything is vibrant and brightly colored. The film also gives its story room to breathe and makes the most of its warm visuals, such as a beautiful scene in which the ducks playfully soar through the clouds and throw clouds like snowballs. The movie compensates for its lack of emotional and thematic depth with plenty of humor. In fact, Migration is hilarious. Perhaps it merely tickles the feathers of my own personal sense of humor, but it had me laughing out loud more than I have in many movies this year. There are some slapstick and physical gags to please younger viewers as well as some instances of clever Bluey-esque humor that will be relatable for parents. In several ways, Migration is a quintessential family film. Content-wise, it is one of the cleanest animated movies of the year. Thankfully, it lacks the unwanted language or sexual elements that have plagued some other family films, making it a safe and wholesome entertainment choice for families. In another sense, it is also a film that centers on family and the strength that comes from a loving and united family. Migration may not have the captivating magic of some beloved animated films or the tear-jerking emotional resonance of early Pixar movies, but it is an uplifting story the whole family can enjoy. It's a simple film, but it's a fun adventure, and like The Family of Ducks, sometimes it's worthwhile to set aside the anxieties and trials of life from time to time to go breezing through the clouds, laughing and enjoying life together. Language: there are several exclamations of "oh my gosh," one use of heck, and at least one use of stupid. Violence: the father tells a frightening bedtime story to his kids in which the young heroes are killed by predators, although the mother repeatedly interjects with happier endings. The duck family frets that a couple of crazed herons are planning to eat them and discovers some fish bones from the last guest. In a restaurant, the characters see cooked duck, obviously bad news for a duck. A villainous chef carries around a knife. Sexuality: a boy is infatuated with a girl, and after she leaves, his little sister innocently chirps, "I'm sorry you can't have babies with her." Later, when reunited with the girl, the sister blurts out that her brother says her name in his sleep. The family stumbles upon a room full of ducks doing a duckified version of relaxation yoga, featuring elements such as egg position, etc. Strength of the family: Migration is all about family and how each member plays an important role within the family unit. The story is less plot-driven and more about spending time with the family as they attempt to navigate the various joys and challenges of life together. Throughout the various adventures, each of the family members is given an opportunity to be the hero, while also gaining a deeper appreciation for the strengths and perspectives of the others. The anxious, worried father finds strength in his wife's carefree attitude, while she learns to appreciate her husband's caution. The children learn to trust their parents' wisdom, but the parents must also trust their children's potential. After the movie, my 8-year-old son shared that the lesson was to be adventurous. "My son is not always the quickest to step out of his comfort zone or try new things, especially when there's a chance of failure, so this was a welcome lesson for the film to explore." In many ways, the concerns and fears that kept the family contained in their lake sanctuary are validated. The world is a dangerous place, yet, by facing those challenges alongside others, the experiences are worthwhile. The movie encourages children to be brave and step out of their comfort zones, while suggesting that parents must loosen their tight clutch and allow their children the opportunity to experience the ups and downs of life.